Hello guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for my rational perspective on Leeds United 0, Chelsea 0. Frustrating, I think, at the end of the day. I think I can pick out some really good performances from a Chelsea perspective, but they're all in the defensive sense, which has been the strongest part and biggest improvement under Thomas Tuchel. But the thing Thomas Tuchel is still needing to work on, despite some good signs in the previous two games, is our attack. It's that attack failing to click on a consistent basis, failing to be reliable on a consistent basis as well. And I think that it's still that issue. Once we get into the final third, we really struggle. There were some encouraging signs early on in chance creation, but we didn't ever test Meslier to a serious extent. And I think against this Leeds side, that's very disappointing. I think against a side who have only had 2 draws this season going into this game, this is their 3rd draw. I think commentary was saying it's the first draw they've had in about 19 games. Their defensive record is really poor this season. It's as poor as some of the sides in the relegation zone. You really need to get at this Leeds side a bit more. There is space to exploit, and the way we didn't exploit it today, all the attackers that were tried, even when Thomas Tuchel made subs, it just didn't work out. And I think that's a real frustration because it has halted the good momentum we've seen. And I think it really puts pressure on Chelsea in the next 3 or 4 Premier League games. I think it is when we face the likes of Brighton, West Brom, Crystal Palace. I think Fulham's in there as well. Chelsea need to get maximum points because there are teams behind us with games in hand. The race for the top 4 is going to really heat up after the international break. So that's a frustration. I think we go into, once again, the lineup. You can't be surprised at rotation anymore. I think the biggest talking point going into this game was the start of Christian Pulisic. Pulisic coming back into the team, of course, after all the speculation this week surrounding his future. Tuchel was asked about it pre-game. He comes back into the side, but does play as a right wing back, as we've seen him use Callum Hudson-Odoi before. And I think he was one of Chelsea's, in the attacking side of the game, was one of Chelsea's more exciting players today, especially in that first half. He got one-on-one with Alioski. When you look at the average positions, he was really pushing up the pitch to get one-on-one with Alioski, but unfortunately some of his really good crosses, once he got one-on-one, I mean, in a game like this where you're going against Leeds who man marking, you're trying to get those players who are best, who can drive past a man from a standing position, and Pulisic is one of those players. He did that to good effect in the first half. Unfortunately, when the ball was played into the likes of Kai Havertz, we could not finish it, and that has been a consistent problem under Tuchel. It was a consistent problem earlier in the season too. So once again, you're seeing the frailties, or at least the awkward nature of our attack that is still struggling to connect. We saw Kai Havertz playing really well in that false 9, which I think is still a really good position for him to play in. You can't expect him, I think the fact is maybe those high expectations on Monday, felt he was just going to go into every game now and give a 10 out of 10. He had a couple of opportunities today in front of goal. Nothing where you felt he had to score that opportunity. There was one earlier in the second half. This was an issue for me as well. I think space was there to exploit more from Chelsea. And I don't know if it's the cautious nature of Tuchel we've seen so far with this system, where it seemed in more central areas, Chelsea players found unexpected space. It seemed that when Chelsea, who were trying naturally to go out wide on the likes of Christian Pulisic, Ben Chilwell, at times Havertz, of course, drifting wide, Mason on that left too, Ziyech as well. I felt there were times where a player would literally, Kante, I think, had this opportunity several times in the game where he just got the ball from central midfield and just literally drove in a straight line, and it seemed to open up for him. That happened for Kai Havertz in the second half and probably should have done better. Meslier saving it, that was probably Chelsea's most clear opportunity in the game overall, and that was my frustration throughout the game. I think the positives today are the defensive phase of the pitch. I think that phase 1 of Tuchel has absolutely mastered our defence. Another clean sheet for him today. The back 3 works so well. It was a back 3, it wasn't a back 4. I think at times it did look like a back 4 in the first half when Leeds were really pressing us up the pitch. I think they struggled to do that once Patrick Bamford came on, sort of their biggest goal threat. That really, I think, maybe halted or made their play a little bit awkward in the final third too, but Chelsea took control of the game in terms of possession, and I feel that the defensive side of our game was immaculate today. It really was. Christensen once again playing so well, Dave as well. I think Mendy making 2 big saves, especially the one in the second half where Chelsea had been dominant for a long period of the game, and you need to be alert. It reminded me the reflexes and his body movement to still save a shot when it was going the opposite direction to him. It reminded me of that Sevilla save earlier in the season, another 0-0 draw for Chelsea. Chelsea. Mendy has done so well for Chelsea this season, and I think once again you're seeing why he was such a good signing for Chelsea, such a great value signing. So he can't have any frustration with this game personally. I think he made a couple key saves, couple of key moments in the game for him. Rudiger, I think, was the exceptional one out of the back three. I think apart from one other player today, I think he was outstanding, one of his best Chelsea performances in a long time. I think it said a lot though about the attack that in that second half specifically, when Chelsea's inability to get it into the final third more and create chances, that Rudiger really had the license to drive up a bit more, and I think that was his personal frustration. I thought his mentality today, his awareness of the game, I think in possession, out of possession, just his intelligence in coordination with the likes of Christensen and Dave, who they've formed a really good partnership. You know, the way Leeds attack, trying to get the ball over our defence, the amount of times we caught Leeds attackers offside, I think was really impressive. That is the sign of a really good structured defence who know where each other are and can guess where each other are and where that line's going to be, and they got it spot on so many times today to stop dangerous Leeds attacks. So I think that's really impressive from that side of the game, especially going into Wednesday's game where defence has to be king for Chelsea. Once again, I think that back three has asserted themselves so well, and I think Rudiger, one of his best performances in a Chelsea shirt for a long time, and I think he probably should have had more from the game. I think given what he did, and especially some defensive headers in the first half very early on were so impressive. He was key for Chelsea, keeping a score at 0-0. I think the man of the match for me is N'Golo Kante. I think he was the outstanding Chelsea player throughout the entirety of the game. I think the biggest positive for me is one of the biggest positives about this side, other than defence, is N'Golo Kante. And of course, you can match those two things up. But Kante creatively today was wonderful as well. I think he tried to make things happen. He was a driving force. I think at times he was doing a lot more than any of those attacking players could to try and break down Leeds. I think his passing was wonderful too. I think there are things that Kante does because they aren't as elegant. They're a little bit more subtle, and they're a little bit more just basic, just a simple pass, but it gets Chelsea up the pitch. I thought our counter pressing, as elevated by a player like N'Golo Kante that you want in a high energetic game like this, I thought Kante, his intercepting, his reading of the game, he really was. It's a stereotypical thing to say about N'Golo Kante, but he shows you how good he was today. He was everywhere, he really was, and I think he deserved more from the game as well. I just think it's in that attacking area, and I think there were moments, as I said yesterday in my preview, you felt this was a game made for Timo Werner. Timo only had about 20 minutes, wasn't it? Maybe under that. To impact the game, he did absolutely nothing. He was unable to get into the game. We were unable to get him into dangerous positions. It was the same for Callum Hudson-Odoi. It was the same for Reece James. Of all the criticism you could have of Ziyech, Mount and Pulisic, the three players that came off, I actually think we looked worse once those players came off. Leeds pressed up a little bit more. They got a few set-piece opportunities that were defended well, particularly by Reece James on that side. Once again, defensively, really impressive. But offensively, it's the thing that needs to click, and it is my concern moving forward for Chelsea into next season, where Chelsea have to bury opposition a lot more. I was also frustrated our inability to make more out of set piece opportunities. Leeds really struggle to defend set pieces. They're one of the worst in this league of conceding goals from set pieces. That was a big part of the first game against Leeds back in December, and I felt that we didn't make enough of them. I felt there were times where we got a dead ball situation and we just played it short into play, and that really frustrated me, especially when Ziyech was on the pitch, when Mount was still on the pitch. Kind of frustrated me and baffled me, to be honest, that we didn't make more of those opportunities when it wasn't clicking for me in the final third. It's a frustrating result. 0-0s are always horrible to talk about on this channel because you always come away from a sense of, for rare occasions when 0-0s can be quite exciting and you sometimes wonder how a goal wasn't scored. You felt it could be a very attack-minded game in the first 10 minutes, with them hitting the bar, Mendy tipping it over. There were some opportunities for both sides in those opening 20 minutes, but other than that, it really died down. And against Leeds, it's quite weird to see 0-0 draws. It's quite a rarity given the way they play under Marcelo Bielsa. But I think once again, those questions will be posed about Chelsea's attack. What is Chelsea's best attack? Did Chelsea lack a focal point like Olivier Giroud in a game that you didn't think was maybe tailor-made for Olivier Giroud, given the way Leeds defend so high with their press? But I felt at times in the second half, as Chelsea gained possession and Leeds sat a little bit deeper, I think maybe a player like Giroud could have linked things up. I mean, it's always easier to say in hindsight, given the way that attack works so fluidly and comfortably against Everton. It's a big game, isn't it, on Wednesday? And as I say, defence is the key thing there, but it's also about Chelsea. Can we take our opportunities? Because in the first game against Atletico Madrid, it took a wonder goal from Olivier Giroud to break the deadlock, and I still have my questions over this attack. What is the best attack? We know Tuchel is going to rotate complicate things, but you're still not entirely sure. I can't give you a guaranteed starting front three. I think even players like Callum Hudson-Odoi should have been doing a lot better. I think there was a moment literally at the end there where he passed the ball that was overhit to Reece James, where I felt he was in a really good position to actually just take a shot at goal. I thought he was in a good position to cut in onto his left or drill with his right, his favourite foot, and he didn't take the opportunity there. So I don't think any of the attackers today really stood up, with the exception, I think, of Pulisic, who made some good opportunities in the first half. Good confidence, I think, boosting performance for him maybe. But the rest of them, I don't think can come out of this game with a lot of praise personally for me. And I think that you do look towards the defence, you look towards the midfield, which has been so solid under Thomas Tuchel, remains that, and it helps Chelsea at least get a point. But you do look at the race for top four now, and it's going to heat up. So post the international break, Chelsea have to go on a winning run once again under Thomas Tuchel. Also, we're looking at the next two games, not only Atletico Madrid, which is massive for Chelsea, a massive game, and if Chelsea can get through that, it will be a massive landmark result for Thomas Tuchel. Also, the FA Cup next Sunday, where Chelsea will come up against a rigid defence, I think, in Sheffield United again. So we'll have to see what happens from here, but thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video. Let me know your thoughts as best you can after a 0-0 draw like that, where there wasn't tons of action to speak about. Let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of the uploads on the channel. Follow me on Twitter at Son of Chelsea, and I'll see you again.